I think the beliefs that we have about ourselves, consciously or unconsciously, dictate the outcome of our lives. And the phrase that came to me was, if you have the belief that you actually deserve to have something, then you can have it. That opens your awareness, that opens the opportunities for life, for you to fall into that version of your life. You really drive your own life. It comes down to like what you believe in yourself. And if you can work through your shit, then you'll be able to shed the things that hold you back that you're not even currently seeing.
All right, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of A Path Unfolding. My guest today is Austin Collins, also known as Au5. He's a producer, educator, sound designer of epic proportions. Welcome to the podcast, Austin. How are you doing?
Thank you so much, Jesse. I'm doing very well. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, man, it's good to catch up. We were just chatting before we started about, it's been a while. You and I think, really got to know each other. We did a record with Christina Soto called Free Fall on Gravitas, and that led to a remix competition, which was epic. Your fans are epic, and they definitely showed up. And those were some of the best songs in that sort of, melodic, epic bass. You're such a talented producer, man. It's so good to have you and to share your wisdom and your thoughts and catch up with you. How have you been? How are things going with you right now?
I appreciate it. First of all, currently, like at this moment, I'm feeling great. I'm feeling really good. It feels purposeful to just, I don't know, connect again. It's been such a long time, like you said.
Yeah.
Since that record, it's been 8 years, just about. But, as of recently, a lot's been going on in my life. It's been a lot of up and down, a lot of forward movement. It's kind of hard to summarize, like, how things have been, but trying to take a step back and look at it all, it's like, oh, this is definitely, like, we are making a lot of progress on this trek. It's not necessarily smooth, but lots of things are moving forward.
Yeah. I feel like you have such a philosophical approach to life, and you're such a deep thinker, and I think that really translates into your music. Where do you draw? I mean, not just your inspirations, but like, what are some of your philosophical like underpinnings of life in general? Like, how do you stay positive? How do you stay, kind of focused on your goals and intentions?
That's a good question. It's a deep one right off the bat. Let me see if I could tackle this, because I also find myself like dipping naturally, just kind of like dipping in and out of, I guess, a philosophical, spiritual headspace. Sometimes I feel like I'm very much at the mercy of the physical world, and then other times I feel like I am very, I guess, like heady or ethereal, and much more. Life becomes much more conceptual. I think the through line, though, is realizing that everything is in flux. Everything is changing, and if I feel or believe something one day, it's probably going to change the next day, and before I know it, really. As far as inspiration goes, I think, and I'd love to even just get into this, like, more specifically, like the creativity and the creative flow, is such a, it's such a, like, personal thing, where, like, if I decide to sit down and write a song, like, I may have, I may just like find the flow immediately and get right into it, or I may be like stuck and blocked, and that will be, that'll be frustrating. But in either case, I find that it is a result of, like, whether I'm flowing or not is a result of what is subconsciously, it's kind of like a litmus test of what is subconsciously going on, in my psyche and in my life. A lot of times I think having awareness, I actually believe awareness and belief are the two most fundamental keys to like shaping your life and your experience. And like for instance, if you, I think we have a lot of, we're our conscious mind, our awareness of what's happening in our day-to-day life and our own identities is just the tip of an iceberg that is our entire being, our entire mind. There's so much that we can't see and access just in waking day-to-day life. And when we have these frustrations or these blocks, or something isn't going on in life that we would prefer it to be, it's easy to kind of try to find an external reason for something being the case. Like, this is happening and thus I'm affected by it. But I think the deeper and deeper that we go into awareness, the more we start to the more we start to see that there's actually a lot more control that we have over life. The way that we're reacting to things, if we have awareness of like, well, what triggers us and how our personality kind of responds to certain stimuli, then a choice emerges. We're not just at the mercy of just a unconscious response or reaction. And so I guess really all that to say, having that, like, that system right there is kind of a way for me to like take a step back and take things a bit easier, just knowing that like this is probably anything that I'm facing right now that's challenging and that feels like I have no control and I have something or someone else to blame for, is really more of a subjective thing than it seems like in the moment. And by relaxing and becoming, turning inward, becoming more aware and more present, we can start to reveal these more subtle things about ourselves that are really driving our experience and motivating our actions.
Yeah.
And then the belief part, I think this is something that kind of really clicked for me last year. I was actually at a Seven Lions show. I was opening for him, and I was at the front of house in this at the Pacific Coliseum in Vancouver, and it was like 8,000, 9,000 people, epic show, and I'm just like dumbfounded watching him and the whole performance, just like amazed. And it made me think about how, like, I was like, how is he able to do this? And what do I need to do to be able to do that too? It's not in my, like, I feel, I think that I have like the skill, the musical skill. I don't think it's that. I have a vision, like an artistic vision, that I feel pretty confident about. I don't think it's that. What it came down to for me, I don't know what it was, but what clicked was, I think the beliefs that we have about ourselves, consciously or unconsciously, dictate the way that we live, dictate the outcome of our lives. And the phrase that came to me was, if you believe that you deserve something, like if you have the belief that you actually deserve to have something, then you can have it. That opens your awareness, that opens the opportunities for life, for you to fall into that version of your life. And then that kind of, I think, just stemmed from that was a kind of a culmination of a lot of the inner work that I've been doing over the past couple years. I've been seeing a therapist. I've been going out in the sun and taking walks and kind of just like getting in tune with my body more and my emotions, because I guess you can consider my my personality to be an avoidant, or my attachment style to be avoidant, which basically means when I'm stressed or overwhelmed, or like if my nervous system is like stressed, my tendency is to close off and shut out and disappear. And that's like socially, but also physiologically too. Like I become actually like numb from what I'm feeling. And doing that my whole life, you know, it's a defense mechanism. That's why our personalities are really just a crystallization of trauma response, that it's to protect us. And so there's been a lot of stuff that I kind of I felt like I need to work through this in order for my life to actually be how I want it to be, and for me to just feel more fulfillment. Because like I have these extrinsic successes. I'm making money from my career. I just bought a house with that money, and yet there's still something that is feeling like I'm still like unfulfilled. I still feel like I need to find like validation. I'm looking externally for all these different things to prove that I am good enough or I am valuable enough. And yeah, I think that was kind of a sign for me that I need to do some inner work and realize, well, there's unconscious stuff that is blocking me. So anyway,
wow.
I believe that, yeah, there's a lot of, you really drive your own life. It comes down to like what you believe in yourself. And if you can work through your shit, then you'll be able to shed the things that hold you back that you're not even currently seeing.
Yes.
And I'm in no way like I've in no way like figured all of this out and I'm like completely like purified and whatnot. No, I'm kind of in the thick of it right now. This is an ongoing process. But that's the stuff that's been going on for me and that I've been thinking about this past year.
Well, first, congrats on the house. That's epic. And
Thank
with
you.
your partner, that's beautiful. I know you've been with her for a while. A couple things that came up for me that are really important is like some of the words that you're using, trauma and trigger and sort of the inner work. You know, I think those words are becoming more commonplace, but I think they're really important to just hit on that a little bit. And I think for a while, I may have even been dismissive of the idea of something that triggers something, but it's so important what you just talked about of that defense mechanism. And I learned about this in a program called the Landmark Forum. And the first part of the Landmark Forum is about getting complete with your past. And you start to dive into those early traumas. And everybody has them, big or small. For me, it was my parents' divorce. And it was very amicable and they did the best job they could, but I still had some issues around it. And so learning about that and doing that inner work to see where does that come? What are my triggers? And then what is your defense mechanism? When you talked about that avoidance personality type, what do you do? How do you react when you get in that sort of fight or flight emotional state where you're no longer sort of driving the ship and it's just your body and your mind sort of reacting as if it's like, you know, electrically charged and you just really don't have much choice in the matter. As you said so beautifully, like as you start to do that inner work and start to become aware of yourself and sort of take that third party and you can watch yourself and take a step back and take a breath in those triggered moments, catch yourself and take a breath and then choose to respond differently, or at least communicate, hey, I am on the verge of this and this is really tough for me, or this is something that I don't deal with well. You can have a lot less friction. And what I was taught is like sort of we repeat our past into our future. If you don't learn about these triggers and these habitual patterns in that you play out in your relationships again and again, where your sort of your defense mechanisms are coming up, then you just sort of recreate your past into your future again and again. The other thing that's interesting about it, and I think this is something that you talked about too, is that defense mechanism can also become your superpower. Like you are so incredibly talented and your desire to create amazing work and prove and be validated has led you to become an absolutely phenomenal technical sound designer wizard. I would definitely give you the wizard title, by the way. You're absolutely a wizard.
Thanks.
But then once you can get that superpower, then you can go back and do the inner work and start to turn down the volume on the pain and the response.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's thanks for saying that first of all. And you're totally right about that. I was actually thinking about this the other day, how you're you're it's like a double-edged sword. Your your past, that all the things that have challenged you and have kind of shaped you
Mm-hmm.
into who you are, like that is just as much negative as it is positive. It
Yeah.
just comes down to, well, yeah, what are you doing with that? And
Mm-hmm.
like you said, I like I have used a lot of that motivation to like prove myself and find validation and acceptance, um, as a that kind of fueled a lot of the um, the isolation and
Mm-hmm.
learning how to be a prolific music producer and engineer.
Yeah.
Like I found a lot of, I mean, I grew up an only child, and so from a very, very young age, I kind of felt that, I guess it wasn't even something that I recognized, but I was used to kind of being isolated and
Mm.
not having much of a social connection. And so I spent a lot of time just entertaining myself and finding ways to do that. And then once I was, in middle school or high school, came along, and there was much more. It was very socially overwhelming. My ability to, I guess, prove myself really came down to all of the eccentric, and like I was known as like a brain, like a very knowledgeable person, and very skilled at very specific things, and
Mm-hmm.
that's what gave me that social credit essentially.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Luckily, I was able to also turn. Luckily, for one, it was something that I truly enjoyed doing,
Yeah.
and I was able to turn it into a career. Like that's another tricky thing. Sometimes we're challenged by, like, we have this pressure to perform, and we end up doing things that we don't actually want to do, but are like we're trying to succeed.
Mm-hmm.
And if we're not truly enjoying that process, at least part of that process, I don't think it's really doing us any good. Even when it comes to making music that, like, to cater to a specific audience, if you're not really enjoying that kind of music, then I think ultimately that's it. A lot of times it translates.
Yeah.
You may be, for me, I've always kind of been a wanderer. I will kind of just make a broad spectrum of things that I'm feeling at any given time, and not really restrict myself with the style. And that's a blessing and a curse. It's a curse because I have an identity crisis like every month. Like, what am I, like, who am I trying to be? What am I trying to say? I'm trying to like box myself in because I see all these other artists that
Mm.
have like a really solid, grounded, firm brand.
Mm-hmm.
It's really appealing, especially when it's something that you can immediately see and recognize. And
Yeah.
I've always been kind of like envious of that. But the the plus side of that is, well, I'm kind of boundless. I kind
Mm-hmm.
of can do whatever I want, and I think the consistency there, is the passion and quality in the variety. And I'm still trying to embrace that. I'm still trying to figure out what that like
100%.
looks like, and how I can continue to present as that. Really, how can I get out of my own way in order to
Mm.
let my deeper self, my truer self, just shine through naturally?
Yeah. I mean, from the outside looking in, I could recognize one of your songs almost off the bat. You have a very consistent style and energy and elements to it. And as I was kind of preparing for this interview, I just looked at the spectrum of labels that you've worked with and the collaborators that you worked with. I think ultimately it's a more fun path. Like you are a polymath, you know, video editing, you know, design, you know, branding, you obviously are extremely talented with music, and you haven't painted yourself into a corner. When I see a new genre emerge and then everybody kind of jumps on that train, and then when it starts to crash, it's like, uh-oh, we're all going down. It's like, well, you kind of tied your ship to that. You are making music that, you know, and then you can see it in your numbers, that's timeless. Like some of your songs, I was looking at one as Snowblind, I believe 200 million plays on Spotify. I think that says a lot about the repeat listen, where people are coming back to that song again and again, and really, maybe it was 20. I might have spoke there, but
21 million. Okay.
Yeah, 21. But still, that's still, a lot of plays. And you know, and having run the label, I think Gravitas is very much in that same way. We don't go. There's some places where we don't go, but for the most part, it's open, and it's about the quality and the consistency, and then we want people to feel something. We want to make sure that it's intelligent. We're not trying to like encourage people to drink lean and get high and do this and party. It's like, explore yourself. Like, what's happening inside of you? How can you connect with the world? How can you learn about yourself through this music, or connect with others through this music? And so I think there always is a flip side. The grass can feel greener, but I think for you, you've listened to your heart, and you've made the music that makes sense for you. And I think that's an incredible lesson. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, awesome. when I make something, and this is something that I've been experimenting with a little bit more recently, I find that if I have these ideas of and I think a lot of us, especially as producers, do. I've also been like on Reddit quite a bit, checking out like the EDM production subreddit, and something that I see a lot of is producers that have been producing for, you know, a decent amount of time, like 4 to 10 plus years, and they're like, I feel so stuck and it's not fun anymore. And I have gone through I've gone through many of those kind of phases, and it makes me think about how when we start out, we are purely, even as children, we have no idea about like how things should be. We don't see these compartments that we end up kind of falling into without even realizing it. Children are freely creative. They are just being purely themselves. Like they don't need to learn how to like find the flow, so to speak. That's a natural innate thing, and I think that's actually something that's in all of us. If we don't have that, that doesn't mean that we've lost it. That means that something is just barricading it, or that's just blocking us from that. I like the term, or I like the phrase, we need to just get out of our own way, because there is the us, the ego, the identity, the personality us, which is the individualizing force, and it can be very restrictive, especially when we are trying to be open and receptive to ideas and things that are non-physical, you know, in the ether, so to speak.
Yeah.
And our culture in Western society, particularly capitalism, competition, industry, is so focused on and puts a lot of pressure on people to become more of an individual, and it's like a very honorable thing to work hard and be an entrepreneur and like be your own brand and identity. And I think there is a piercing force in that. When it's balanced and when it's healthy, I think there is a very strong, piercing, cutting force in being an individual, knowing who you are and what you're capable of. But I don't really see, I think this is something that is happening more recently, like the acceptance of Eastern traditions, and even things like psychedelic medicine are kind of deprogramming practices or tools to balance that really individuating force that is just prevalent all around us. And I think we need to find some kind of practice that works for us to let go and get out of our own way and like soften our boundaries and our borders that are keeping us like competent and safe yet blocked off. You know, there's a duality there. I think
My wife and I are doing art classes every Thursday, and we did charcoal, and then we just started on acrylic painting. And I think that is a lot to me. I'm really experiencing that beginner's mind that you're talking about. And as I was thinking about that and thinking about what you were saying, is like, I'm wanting the person, what's cool about the class is you just go down, you sit down, you pick your medium, and then you start to go at it. And the teacher walks around for everyone, and you can ask her questions. And at first, like, we had no idea what we were doing. And so she gives you the basics, but it's really not a hard and fast rule. She's just like, you know, try to frame it in, try to sketch it out. And I'm like, that's all the instruction you're going to give me. But that's the beauty of it, is because she's not putting these boxes and these rules around it yet, allowing you just to have fun, get a feel for the materials and all of that. And I think, right, in music production, it's really interesting, especially electronic music production, where someone like yourself is creating the whole song from start to finish, even including the mixing and the mastering and the engineering and everything from the beginning to the end, to delineate between right now I am in the creative flow state to, okay, we've got our idea, we've got what we're trying to say here. Now I need to sort of switch to engineer mode and think technically about frequencies and composition and stuff like that. And that's, or not composition, but, you know, the mixing and the mastering. And so that's a really blurry thing for electronic music. So I think that's an interesting point.
Yeah. That's something I love that you brought that up. For one, I want to say, yes, it is returning to the beginner's mind. That's the term. And having a practice or doing something like what you're doing, which is you're not a professional painter or charcoal artist,
Yes.
and yet you're throwing yourself into that work, or you know, that
craft,
that practice.
Yeah, this idea. And no, it is beautiful because, that sparked for me right when you said that. It was like, this is valuable because it translates to other places in my life. When you start to learn that, then you can see maybe your real true profession and your technical craft in a new light. And you can apply this technique or this new idea or inspiration or way of thinking about that composition or creativity to that new thing. You can bring a fresh idea. You mentioned psychedelics too. I mean, one of the biggest things about that is that it really, from what I understand, it opens your neuroplasticity. It helps you be more open to new ideas. Mm-hmm. And when that's happening, you could come back to something where you've been stuck or blocked and just let it flow. Mm-hmm. Instead of, like you said, you can get out of your own way and just let the pen go. When we were doing these charcoal paintings, I was so locked in on something and I was really stuck trying to find it. And then I actually just said, I'm going to not look at the source picture anymore. I'm actually just going to draw a shape that feels really beautiful to me and let my body dictate what. And when I did that, all of a sudden I came out with something that really felt artistic. There was an emotion expressed in this one line that really brought everything together. So yeah, man. So trying new things. I mean, I think that's the thing, is like, get out of your comfort zone, get out of your locked in daily routine. And that novelty sparks new ideas and new connections in your brain, and that feels good. And then you can take that inspiration back to your work.
100%, man.
Awesome.
Even hearing that now, like you saying that now, helps me.
Awesome.
Because there's so many of these like small subtle pressures that remind me of like who I am in other people's eyes, and that's a very kind of fixed version. And doing something that is totally outside of my industry, like even drawing, like I have like a sketchbook that some nights, and journaling I think is another thing too. Like I did not go to school for like creative writing or in any professional way, like writing words, but the concept of free writing, something that I started doing a couple years ago, which was, I'd never really journaled or anything because I always felt like, it needed to be a certain way, or I have this idea that someone is going to read this and it's not going to be formatted properly, or I'm like, kind of have to just like relax and loosen and shake off all that stuff. Throw just something completely random down, like draw a shape and just see what the next step is and how that makes you feel and how that informs your next action. It's the same thing with free writing. Like, just type a word, and then whatever internal monologue you have, start typing that. And eventually, once you get all that kind of just stuck junk out of the way, then there's this other intuitive force that kind of keeps flowing that you can just follow. It's like a siphon. You got to get it started first. And sometimes it's like, it's hard to.
Yeah. I know Il Gates really recommends the morning pages as a daily practice. I know Tim Ferriss also says this too, and it just really helps you get, just like meditation, just get the, like, let the stuff settle and get the crud out. And like, if you have this thought, oh, I need to do this or that, or this thing is stressing me out, putting that out on paper in the morning can help you let it go. And then you can move on with your day. Yeah. Yeah.
So true.
Speaking of Dylan, I want to talk to you about, you've had, congrats again. You had, you've crossed 100,000 subscribers on your YouTube channel. I think I'll circle back on some of this identity and pressures around that. But I think there's been this move, sort of like yourself, Mr. Bill, Ahi, Il Gates, the community of educators and connecting with people. I just wanted to ask you a little bit, like, how do you approach your tutorials, and how have you found that to be, like, one, obviously it's a benefit to your career, you're connecting with more people and they're really learning from you, but like on a deeper philosophical level or emotional level, does that really light you up when you see people learning from you?
I want to say yeah. I'm also just thinking about, like, well, what is the motivation? I think there's a couple things that's going on internally. I started out doing. When I first started making tutorials, it was did not feel natural, but I wanted to share stuff that people weren't sharing, producers weren't sharing. I had a plethora of techniques and tricks that I've learned in the solitude of, just no lifing producing for so long, and I want to share that. I want to share that with other people because I didn't have that when I first started producing. But once I started doing that, I realized that people really found value in that. I used to do a lot of one-on-one lessons. It's not something I do anymore, just because it just gets to be too much, and sorting that out, scheduling that is tricky. Yeah. So a way for me to still get that out and share knowledge is through tutorials. Doing one-on-one lessons, though, really showed me that I have a lot of value to bring. Initially, I didn't know that I did. I just knew that there's stuff that I wanted to share. And, like, for instance, there are producers that would hit me up asking me, like, how I made a certain sound, or asking me for feedback on their tracks, and I would give them feedback that would be really apparently unique and valuable. Like, it had a potency to it. And so I kind of trusted that. That was something that instilled the belief in me that, oh, I maybe have a value that is, above average for people. And that belief opened the door for me to see the opportunities and to also feel more compelled to keep sharing that and keep spreading that value and that knowledge. And now doing them is, well, like I said, there's a combination of motivations. One, I just love people getting excited about it. It's almost like I have two fan bases now. When I go out and play shows, or even if I go out especially here in Denver, I'll go out to see a show. I'm not performing, but I'll see like an EDM show. And there's always at least one person that recognizes me. And it seems like half the time they are like, "Hey, I love your music, man. I saw you play this or whatever." So there's like the fan, the audience member, but then there's also the music, like they're fans of me. They discovered me through my music production tutorials, and that's really cool because a lot of times the people that approach me about they're like, I'm such a huge fan of your production tutorials. They helped me out so much. They inspired me to start making music and having like music releases. There's a depth to that that's different. And it's both, they're both as special with people who love my music and people who love my content, both as special, but the people who love my educational content, it hits different, and it feels it's more I think refreshing. It's also a more new thing that's been happening, so there's that too. But it's just really cool to see people are excited about me being a teacher, and me being able to educate them and help them in all these ways. People find value in both avenues though, and I think it's a good pairing. Also, the other motivation is if I can teach people how to become better producers, and if they are also fans of my kind of music, then that just means there's more music out there that I'm probably going to enjoy too. There's just better quality music that's in alignment with my, production style and philosophy or whatever.
Yeah.
Just better music out there, and that's I love that.
Yeah. We started Gravitas Create with that same sort of intention. We were running Gravitas and having some good success, and then we started asking people on Twitter through DMs like, are you a music fan or do you also produce? And overwhelming, like it was over 50% of the people responded that they also made music. And I was really excited about that because I was like, wow, there's such an opportunity here. This is a remix culture. This is a, very easy, low barrier entry for people to download Ableton and give it a try. And from a marketing standpoint, I was like, there is not much better in terms of engagement than if you download someone's stems and play with them for 3 days for a remix competition. You will never forget that artist's name, or you'll never forget that song. And oftentimes those people that are doing the remixes are sort of the figureheads and the nodes in the communities at large. They're the opening DJs and the promoters and the hustlers and the movers and the shakers. And so they'll sort of spread the word and bring the community together. And it's also it's beautiful for them to be able to play with the sounds that you've created. And especially if you can share a session like that and they can really learn in that way, it's so impactful. And then what the benefit to you as a producer is, like, you get that mind share every time they go and they make that sound or that they use that technique, they're going to think of you. And that's a really beautiful thing and way of establishing a fan and a relationship with someone. And then like also you're truly giving back to the community in a really cool way. And like you said, you're building on, all this work you've put in and, techniques that you've learned from other people. And it really, we're building, and the music is getting better and more technical and more sophisticated. And the sound design is like, wow, like you go back 20 years, it was just not really possible to do some of the things that are happening now. So
truly.
That's awesome.
Not even from a technological standpoint. Obviously, like new plugins and new types of synthesis, AI now is, there's always new stuff that's coming out that would not have been able to be done technologically speaking back then.
Yeah.
But also, I find this interesting, like Serum, for instance, this year is its 10-year anniversary in September.
Wow.
I'm pretty sure, of it being released. I'm still discovering new techniques and new sounds that have not been made before with the same thing. Basically what I'm saying is there's an evolution of not just technology, but the ways that artists use the technology, even if it's technology that has existed for 10 years or even 20 years.
Yeah.
And that's the something that really excites me too. It makes me think about, well, what is it that we have? Like, what do we have right now? We're not in the future yet. We're not at the, like, there's so much that we are still not at the mercy of the actual technology to to still create from.
Yeah.
What is music going to sound like in 10 years?
Yeah.
Use it, and how could we use the tools that we have now to create potentially what that sounds like? That just, the prospect of that alone is inspiring and exciting for me.
Right. So like
And
our limiting factor is absolutely not our plugins or our technology. Our limiting factor is our imagination and creativity currently.
primarily, I believe so,
Yeah.
by quite a long shot. Hmm.
I think that's a really important point to make, in that, like, this is a creative arts industry. It's incumbent upon us to be creative with the music, creative with the art, creative with the campaign, creative with the message and the communication that we put out, and not just follow the status quo. And I see that so often. It's crazy, because it's like, we're creatives, and then I see so many people just sort of copycatting what's out there, and it's like, have fun with it, get weird with it, do something really strange. And I mean, maybe I'm guilty as charged too in that regard, but I think that's the challenge, and that's the opportunity in this space, is the weirder and more interesting or more thoughtful or more deep you can get, the more concept album you can bring to life, the more stories you can, the way you combine your music with a video or something like that is just so it's really again, limiting factor is our creativity and the work to put in and make it happen. Right.
I think so. And I think
yeah.
that's going to be the thing that continues, like, the human creativity. It's not in the, I'm trying to think how to word this. I've been thinking about this a lot lately, because I've been getting messages from people, and also apparently something just happened today in regards to AI music generation that's like freaking people out. And I've been thinking about this a lot, and this ties into what we're talking about, where, okay, what if AI is able to just create all of the best most popular music? That scares a lot of people. That scares a lot of artists and producers. Already with visual art, it is scaring a lot of visual artists, and it is robbing them of jobs. If I may kind of express my perspective on this.
Go for it.
I feel pretty strongly about this. First thing I want to say is, yes, there are a lot of artists whose jobs are being robbed in favor of AI-generated art. That is unfortunate. That sucks. What I want to say, though, is that does not devalue the artist. It does not make them any less of an artist, because an AI can do something currently that can simulate that.
Mm-hmm.
And the same thing with music. People are being robbed of jobs, particularly people that are doing that are making music for like I'm trying to think what it's called, like sync licensing.
Yeah, library music.
Yeah, exactly. Where there is a prompt from another human to make a certain type of song. That sucks, because that is for a lot of people a source of income that they rely on, and now they have to suddenly adapt and try to find some other way. It's disruptive and it's uncomfortable, but I think ultimately, though, and this is what I'm getting at, is no matter how good AI can learn something and then replicate it, it is not going to replace the value of human, like the spark in the human, the thing that actually drives people to want to create something and want to hear something new. Like if we have an AI model that is able to make like all of the most popular music that we have now, in my opinion, I'd say let it do so. Like, let it make everything and anything. Like, train it on everything and let it make everything, because I think what that's inevitably doing is just expediting the expansion of human consciousness and artistic taste. It is, I think, also going to, I'm already seeing this with AI art, like wow, this stuff looks amazing immediately, but like it does not have a timeless, like really none of this art has any timeless value to it. It's something that I think you need like quite a bit of exposure of to kind of get like the
Yeah.
to kind of get used to like what it is that you're seeing. It's like, wow, everything is eye candy,
Yep.
but like it very quickly has like a value fall off in the eyes of, or in the ears of the listener. And that to me, that just informs, it expands the palette of what people like and what people want to create. And it also enables artists to go even further outside of the acceptable zone. And I think what we will see is, yeah, a lot of people will like this AI generated music and art for a while, and we will start to reevaluate and find humanness, like human art, stuff that is just really outside of the bounds of what AI has been trained on, to be more appealing. And even if AI gets trained on that and starts making that sort of stuff, then, like I said, it's just creating this exponential expansion of consciousness and of artistic tastes and capabilities. So ultimately, I think it's okay. We just gotta trust that like our humanness is never going to be replaced, and there's something really special and beautiful about that. Just allow yourself to have fun in the process and do something outside. Because now, it may be creating stuff that we spend so much time and hard work to create very easily and quickly, but that's also giving us the opportunity to do something so left field or so different that we felt afraid to, or were restricting ourselves to do.
Yeah.
Now we have the opportunity to do that, and there's even more value to doing so.
Yeah. I agree with you. I'm definitely an optimist. I think there's, there will be a lot of fallout. The thing I worry about is, and just to go back to yours, like you started learning piano at 4, you started learning bass and music production at 13. You probably weren't super motivated to like, hey, I want to have a career. This is going to be my successful. But there's a little bit of that in everything, right? And so if AI does societally devalue so much of the possible opportunities, career path, or just the abilities to subsist off of your work, then more and more people will take a left turn to other creative endeavors or whatever, or different work. And I think there is some loss that will happen there. There won't be as many people, but I do think you're right, is that we will see people really pushing the boundary. And that if this pop stuff or this hip hop is just, it's done. Like it's been done. The moves have been completed. It's been calculated. All of the possible iterations have been done. And a music supervisor needs a song for a Sprite commercial, they're not making a call anymore. They're typing it into their AI bot and it's coming out. There's a company here in Austin called Amy, and they hired one of the producers that was released on Gravitas Amp Live. Is incredibly talented. And so like they're doing this thing where he's creating a bunch of bones and stems and parts for songs, and then the AI component knows how to overlay it, and then the app has an interface to say like, okay, make it more upbeat or make it more funky or give me a little bit more Latin. And it's pretty cool, and it's there for what we were just talking about, the sort of the sync and library. So we had just had Savage on the podcast, and it was he was like, this year is going to be unbelievable. The stuff that we're going to see in AI this year is just, it's going to blow our socks off. So yeah, I think we just got to strap on. I think, for me and for you, we're coming in a generations where we knew what life was without that. I knew what life was without a smartphone. I used, like we used to go outside and play, and like now life is very, very different for a lot of people. And we're going to see a generation that grows up with AI in their hands, and they'll never know a world without it, which is kind of crazy. And when you see a kid pick up a remote and they just automatically know how to use it, you're like, how did you know that? Like their
Yeah.
comprehension of those tools and the abilities and how to use it and be creative with it, I think are going to be really exciting.
Yeah. 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 They're intuiting these technologies, these
Yeah.
tools as if they are, I mean, just they're born into it. They don't even,
Yeah.
it's not even something that they really have to like be taught. Yeah. It's fascinating.
Wow.
But ultimately, yeah, all these things are tools, I think, for human expression.
Yeah.
And
Well,
I think going outside and putting the phone down, we're even seeing things nowadays where there's a value in, I'm trying to think of it like an example specifically. I don't know, more analog devices, things that you don't, because you could do so much with your phone now. Like
yeah.
it is
It's
a
insane.
screen that can display anything and you can interact with it in any way. There are certain things that I'm seeing, even something as simple as like a Polaroid camera. That's been reevaluated because we've gotten so good at digital camera technology that everyone has it. Like we want to go back to, there's something appealing to this. You know, people can find value in it for like a nostalgic purpose.
Sure.
And I think also a lot of the new generation, like Gen Z, feels nostalgia for something that they weren't even born into yet. There's like this resurgence of like this 90s aesthetic and like
Yeah.
analog stuff.
Yeah. Vinyl being popular.
Vinyl too. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that
Wanting
goes
to
way
hold
back.
and touch it. Yeah. Yeah. The Polaroid thing's absolutely interesting. It's like, there's a whole experience to that. And it doesn't just get lost. Like I've got a couple from Lightning in a Bottle last year that someone took, and it's really nice. It's really nice, and the photo's shit. The photo's garbage. It's ridiculous, but it's cool because it happened and it was a moment in time. And it's not. I don't have to open my phone and scroll through the thing to find the thing. And like, it really exists. It really happened. So yeah, that's interesting. I think that's beautiful. I have a couple of your vinyls, by the way. So
Cool. And thank you.
man.
But yeah, even though like vinyl, you're not getting like, no, it's not like a 96 kilohertz resolution. No, it's
Sure.
definitely like duller and softer on the top end.
Oh,
Maybe
yeah.
not so stereo, but I mean, for one, that in itself, I think has, in the right context, has a pleasing quality. And two, we find value in these different aspects of the product or of the art. That isn't just the thing. Like that isn't just fidelity, which is what we've been pushing just over and over, or loudness, which
Yeah.
is what we've just been trying to push. Like fidelity and loudness are still things that that we're still trying to push technologically.
But is it like, is it that we get so far, you get so close to almost perfect that like you said, it's one. It's one. So now it's about it's the aesthetic. It's about how does that make you feel when you experience it, and does that softer, warmer. The other thing I was going to say about that is like whatever it was when you were like 18, 19, 20, and you have those seminal moments in your life, that's usually what sticks with you as your thing, right? The reason that our parents or my parents love vinyl is because that was like during their like moments. That was like the record that they first had sex to or got high to, and that's like they'll always love that Led Zeppelin song. They'll always love that Beatles album. And for me, it's like Tool. And so it's, you know, these things that are happening now, I think people are going to go back to, and you do see these like trends and things come back and resurface because it's a style, it's a choice, you know. So is it better inherently? No. Like you said, I mean, it is better fidelity, but what's the experience of listening to a record? I love the idea of pulling it out. One, I love the idea of giving my friends or artists that I support money. That's great for me, but I mean, maybe not everyone feels that way, but then pulling it out and having this ritual of putting the vinyl on the platter and sort of intentionally putting it on versus being at the disposal or whatever of the algorithm. What's going to play next? I don't know. I'm not even in charge. No, I'm in charge of my playlist.
That's true too. Yeah. Yeah, and there's, like you said, it's cyclical. We're
Yeah.
gonna, I think there's, it doesn't, we can try to figure out like, well, what are these specific measurable attributes that
Mm.
are valuable? I think ultimately though, like everyone has a subjective experience,
Hmm.
and that's something that is going to change as the generations go on.
Yeah.
And we really can't pin down like a specific quality or a measurable thing that invokes a an abstract quality that we find valuable or that we like
Hmm.
in us. It's always going to change, and it's always going to find itself in different ways. It's always going to come through in different ways through the eras.
Yeah, I would say like if you had never heard of the Mona Lisa and didn't know anything about it, like would you pick that one out of all the ones? Like probably not, dude. I saw it in France and I was like, I guess. Like there's so much more. Like I would probably be, more of like a Jackson Pollock. Like I'm like, wow,
Yeah,
that's
same.
really cool, right? And so like it's art is so subjective and yeah, that's interesting. I think the underpinning really is just like what's going to happen on a whole, like for this at a society, like how many people are going to just tune into the AI channel? Maybe there's a Spotify tier that's free and then you only get the AI music because it costs them absolutely nothing to show it. And it's just, you get an ad every 30 minutes. Like that's we'll see those games play out.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's
Oh
so
man.
fascinating to think about and kind of creepy, but
Yeah, definitely creepy.
I'm I'm here for it. I'm also glad I'm alive at this time to just see how this is panning out, because this is nothing. Nothing has been like this before,
Yeah.
and it's so trippy to have this human experience where this new advanced form of intelligence is emerging
Yeah.
among us and with
Yeah.
us. Like it's
Yeah.
really something that is growing with us. You know, what we feed it is what it becomes. I think that's something that we got to be a little bit mindful of,
Yeah.
because it only exists because of us.
That's true.
Yeah.
Wow. Man, well, I wanted to ask you a few other things. Like, I wanted to go back and just see a little bit because I run a label. I wanted to ask you kind of what has your experience been like? I know this is a little bit of a loaded question. I don't expect you to like ditch on everybody, but I thought, what as an artist who has worked with a lot of labels, like, what would your advice be to people as they're starting to work with labels? Or how has your experience been? What has been some of the good things that you've gotten from it, and maybe some of the things to watch out for?
Yeah. Yeah. Good question. It spans quite the gamut.
Well, I'll even say first, you've worked with like Wakan, Enhanced, Monster Cat, Gravitas. Your last record was on Ophelia, Heaven Sent. And that's a range of all the way from bass music to more house music, melodic, progressive house music. And
Yeah.
so you're really, I think more than any artist I know, released with such a wide range of different labels and probably, seen what they have to offer.
Yeah. In the very beginning, having a label release for me, my first release was 2012. First label release 2012. Having a label was a very important thing for me, and also I think a decade ago there was a bit more. There's a bit more value in certain ways to
Mm-hmm.
releasing on a label. It was, well, the objective things are a label can represent you if you don't have the resources or means to. Like they can fund the PR, and they can also associate you with other acts, and so it is kind of like, in a way, an aggregator for discovery. And that's a cool thing, and that's what really helped me initially. Was I got recognized by Excision because I released on this label, um, Atom Recordings out of Australia, like very small label, but they did a compilation which had other larger artists on it, and I was on that compilation, and because of that, because of those associations with those other artists, I got noticed by even bigger artists like Excision, who then reached out to me and wanted me to release on his label, which was then just another huge step. Like, okay, there's a huge audience that these labels have that I don't. By releasing through them, I get the exposure. And early on, if you're a small artist, I think that's if you're a small artist that doesn't have the resources to do something like really wild and extravagant and getting your name out there or something, which I'd say most artists don't, or don't even really know what they want to do or say at that grand scale, and understandably so. If you're just focusing on like making good music, that's like I was doing, like I didn't want to be involved in any of that stuff. Then it totally makes sense, and I think it's an amazing thing when you can have a label release. On the business end, it varies drastically. I've had labels hit me up that wanted to do exclusive deals where I am like obligated to release 3 albums with them, like one per year, or I'm not allowed to release with other labels, like that kind of restrictive thing in exchange for maybe like a big lump advance fee, which I think I think a lot of small artists can get in trouble this way. They see this huge opportunity because they're desperate for something and they don't know really what they're supposed to be looking for. Okay, this label is offering me like 5 to 10 grand for this album. That sounds amazing, and there's an exclusivity agreement in there where they can't release with other labels or whatever, or something in the contract that restricts them. But that seems like it's totally worth it, and they have no idea what their life is going to be like in the next, I don't know, couple months after it's released, and there's other attention, and the whole legal side of that can be really tricky if you don't know what you're getting into, or if you don't know specifically what you're reading. I mean, having an entertainment lawyer like look over stuff is definitely the best. I luckily have a management team who takes care of all that stuff, and is always has my best interest in mind, and that's great because that would be a lot of time and effort for me to try to learn that myself and determine what's right for me. That's just not kind of how my brain works. I would just be like, yeah, like I'll release music for free as long as people hear it, or I'll play shows for free as long as people hear me. Sometimes you need someone else to kind of be the restricting factor for your benefit in the meantime. But anyway, as time went on, I released on Monster Cat, and they're a huge label,
massive,
and they kind of pioneered the whole using like monetizing YouTube video. Like they started off on YouTube, basically monetizing YouTube plays, and then using that to pay out the artists, which kind of changed the landscape for independent labels and just in general, like the whole making money off of streaming, I think.
Yeah.
But more recently, I've been feeling like labels for me at this point, after going through so many and having such a broad audience that I've like casting such a broad net over the years and building up my value for who I am, not who my associated acts or labels are. I'm really starting to feel like I kind of just want to go fully independent, because I have a vision, and I'm feeling that I need to trust my intuition. When I create a song and I'm really excited about it, if I can release it the next week after it's done, then that excitement and enthusiasm translates to my push of it, versus something where, okay, I get a song done and I'm excited about it. I'm pitching it to all of these labels, and a bunch aren't interested, and then like so much time down the road, finally someone is interested, a label is interested, and then I have to wait an extra, I don't know, there have been times where it's been a couple years for the
Wow.
label to find an appropriate spot to release the song, and by that time it's not something that I want to really represent me anymore. It doesn't feel like it's relevant, and it's hard. There's resistance internally for me to want to push that and be excited about that. And that sort of thing, I've experienced that sort of thing a lot, and kind of like, just ate it, just sucked it up. But I think I believe in myself and my ability to let my excitement and enthusiasm guide me to the way that I express my art. I think that promotion, the way that, and especially with social media now, is when you're done the song, like that isn't the end of the artistic expression or it doesn't have to be the end of the artistic expression, in my opinion. Your enthusiasm and excitement about it, that's still coming out of you. That's still a part of the artistic expression in that same message. And if you can find a way to bridge that gap between promoting your music and like between creating the music and promoting the music, I think that's something that I am encouraged. Something that I'm trying to explore myself, and something that I would like to encourage other artists to explore within themselves. Is like, when you're done the song, like, well, how can you bridge that to a new way to how can you bridge that into the promotional aspect? I don't even like to call it promotion. Like, I was avoiding using that word because I have a stigma attached to, like, okay, promotion, that means it is in a different, we're in like a different headspace now. We have to think about like statistically what works and following all of these steps that we've seen before that other people are doing. And to me, that's just another form of art.
Yeah, it is.
And if you're making innovative music and then promoting it with these, like, you're just copying whatever the trends have been, I mean, it may work in your favor, but I feel like there's probably something a lot more just innovative and unique to you that you can find as an extension of your unique artistic expression to push that. People don't want to be. I'm seeing ads on YouTube now that don't even look like ads. Like they look like a reel or like a TikTok of someone like messing around. Like, it's such a on the end user, like the listener end, or like the whoever it's targeting. If I see an ad and it's like, if you are, I don't know, I'm just trying to think of an example. I see these ads and I just scroll right past them because they feel like ads.
Yeah.
It's not something that is engaging me. It just seems like it's just following the trend of anything else. But if I see something that is like really out of the blue or does not feel like an ad, I'm more inclined to stick with it. And then sometimes I'll find that it is an ad, and I'm like, wow, that's brilliant. And I'm actually interested in the product now, whether it's a song or like an actual thing. I feel like I'm ranting a bit, but
no, I think it's a great topic. I mean, we hit on this a little bit. I follow a guy on Twitter. His name Rob Abelow. I believe I'm saying that correctly, but he's all about creating your community and creating a path for your fans. So there's that the journey from never knowing about an artist to being a super fan is this like many step process. And social media and maybe paid ads and campaigns and promotion are a part of that, but it's about the landing page experience, about the experience of where are you sending these people. And I was ranting about this experience of Spotify and how there's no real way to communicate with your fans. They don't give you any interaction. I love Bandcamp because they at least let you have some back and forth with your fans. You can send them messages, they can donate, they can download. You can do, there's a whole system there. I ran into one of the guys from Bandcamp during South by Southwest, and I was like, dude, can I pitch you my ideas? And he was like, yes. And I was like, please give us the ability to create really beautiful landing pages. Let me put a full page background. Let me put a music video. Let me take the track listing and style it or put it away. Let me tell a story with this landing page. The Bandcamp landing page is so dated and so old. It's like they've got so much of it right, but so much of it is not there. I think Patreon is a fantastic example of what you're talking about. And you don't need 5 million fans. You really need kind of 1,000, 2,000 fans to have a viable music career. And so building that relationship with people. And so thinking about there's, in the marketing ways, there's that funnel, top of the funnel, that might be that first ad. But you want to start a conversation with someone and be like, welcome to my world, and come into the Au5 experience, right? And that's kind of what you're saying, is when somebody's like inviting you in, or they're having a conversation or a dialogue, you're like, this is a real human being talking to me about something. Am I interested in that? Versus it's like, well, come on down to the, car lot and get your thing a dare. And you're like, like run away, So I love that you think about that. I think that's right. It's not enough these days, unfortunately, just to make a beautiful, powerful song that touches people if they never get a chance to hear it. And so it's incumbent upon us as artists, as labels, as managers, as, really promoters, to really take that opportunity when we're presenting music, shows, events, whatever it may be. Take it really seriously. Honor that relationship with that potential fan.
That like the whole Bandcamp idea, and like that you had, that's just really getting me thinking about like the whole experience, the process of discovering something. Mm-hmm. Like that in itself is art. Like that's a form of art too.
It's tough if you don't have a strong following. It's tough if you don't have a community, a small community sort of rallying behind you yet. I think that's one of the hardest times in anything, right? Is the beginning and the starting. And so I think, I guess my advice there is to think about, you kind of have to build it first. You can't wait. And there's going to be a disproportional amount of effort versus reward for a very long time in this regard. But that's same thing with art. Like, it takes so long to get good at making music and be able to do all of these pieces that we talked about, the mastering and the sound design and everything else, to be where it's something that you and other people are proud of. And then to get to the point where you really want to share it, but it's all part of it.
Yeah, I think so too. I also want to touch on how people find the belief that someone's interested in making, like learning how to produce music, and they may be discouraged because they think about like how much of stuff they are going to have to learn and how long that journey is going to be. And that's like a discouraging thing. Going back to the beginner's mind, the childlike expression and desire. I think it's important to ask ourselves and check in when we are starting something new or embarking on a new journey, dig a little bit deeper into yourself and try to find is there a deeper motivation to why I want to do this? And if I don't get, X amount of fans by this time, I can set this goal, but am I going to let that goal hinder me from fulfillment? That's another tricky thing too. Yeah, starting out, if you're not getting fans or attention, it can feel like it reinforces this. It can exacerbate these subconscious beliefs that you are not good enough, just fundamentally.
Yeah.
When most of the times it is really just a matter of just happenstance, kind of random chance. I think luck is like whether you succeed at something or get the job, you have to meet your passion and effort with just random chance, with probability. Like if you don't try at all, then you have a lower probability just in general. If you don't try at all, I mean you miss all the shots you don't take.
Yeah.
Simply.
Well, I think it's what you're saying, right? You have to try, and then it's also about consistency. And there in my career, in our career, as we've seen, there's been a lot of people, really talented artists, drop out. It's a hard game. It is mentally challenging. I do want to circle back on sort of that, like when people idolize you or put you up on a pedestal, how challenging that can be for artists. But the consistency of showing up day after day and putting in some work and getting incrementally better and sort of looking at your blind spots and seeing for you as an honest inventory of like, where could I use some work, and sort of taking I think it's really important for artists to do independent self-releases at the beginning to learn the mechanics and the fundamentals of what it looks like to release music from start to finish. Then when you start to go and talk to a label, you have more of an understanding and empathy for where they're coming from and why they might want what they want and some of the demands or challenges that they're dealing with. You might not understand why you have to wait 6 months or a year before you can release a song, and oftentimes that does suck. But in terms of like, hey, we need to have these things. What's your IPO number and all these other things? Like that stuff can be really overwhelming. But if you start to practice to release music and do it once or twice, then the conversation with the label makes a lot more sense. As you start to be consistent with that, you're going to get better at each part again and again. And it's sort of like analogous to cooking, right? You got to go get the recipe, find a recipe, make the recipe, and then you taste it, and then you kind of say, oh, it could have used a little bit more salt, this, and then take a step back, taking an honest inventory of how that thing went, and then try and do better on the next one. I mean, that's just the only way to get better and see progress and see success. We're talking about very challenging, very competitive industries. And like you said, I think checking in with your motivation. Why do I want this? Am I looking for external validation, or do I want to honestly create art? And it's okay to have a little bit of both or a lot of bit of both,
Yeah. I think that's incredible advice for beginner artists.
Yeah.
I agree. A piece of advice that I got from BT was like when I first, back in like 2012, when I first started releasing music, was he was like, when you're starting out, like just like don't hold on to stuff. Don't try to like perfect it. Like don't spend so much time trying to perfect it or find like the perfect label or perfect opportunity. Just release it. Just get it out. Keep that flowing.
Momentum.
Keep that momentum going,
Yeah.
and keep the channel open.
Yeah.
And that's so crucial.
Yeah.
I think we need to get beginner. I say beginner artists. What I mean is like beginners in the scene, like, or in the industry. Need to get used to. It's kind of a new thing for a lot of people to create something and put it out, and create something and put it out. Even if it doesn't have like an audience or it's not on a specific label, just getting comfortable with that is it's so important to have that flexibility.
I guess I was going to say is like there's going to be a lot of no's, and I think that hit on your validation is if someone says no to your project, and I can think of so many artists that have wanted to work with Gravitas and it just hasn't been a good time, or we've been a different place musically, or it just didn't quite make sense, even though the song was good and the artist is super dope and I really want to work with them, but it still ends up being a no. You do not take that personally. it's just
Yeah.
like you said, it's just happenstance. It's just logistics. It's you know, a little bit of the business element. It's timing. There's bandwidth and, you know, personnel and timing issues where you have to just keep going and follow up with people and stay positive and do not get upset with them if there's a no, and just be, hey, cool. Like at Gravitas, we've made a commitment, and I think we've done a pretty good job with this, to listen to every demo that comes in. We take that really seriously, and we do have canned responses where sometimes if it's a no, we say, hey, this is a no, we're going to pass for right now, but check out these resources and please send us more music in the future. Like, I'm so committed to the fact that we should all in some way be creating something, because like we have that opportunity right now, and it's such a special thing. Even if it never goes anywhere and you never get notoriety or you never get known for it, you still learned about yourself and you learned about the world through the act of creation. It's so powerful.
Yes, I agree. And what I want to touch on, expounding on that, I think being creative and creating in general is like, I've been thinking about this. At the core of it, I really think it comes down to connection. We all want to feel a sense of connection. Sometimes we feel that through like the explicit validation of someone else, or we feel it less, you know, directly through like earning money, where something or someone is valuing us in some way. But I think at the core of it, like, we want to feel seen or heard in some way, and that is really like, I kind of think of I think the universe, I think who we are we're just facets of the same mind. We're just like we're like fragments of God, essentially.
Yeah, a fractal of God. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, we're all these nodes of consciousness that, when we combine together in unity, emerges the greater whole that we all are.
Yes.
And this goes back to the whole like individuation thing. I think there is value to like being an individual and having an ego, because it has that we all have these unique gifts and that cutting, piercing force of focusing down to a point of consciousness. But ultimately, we have this desire to connect again, and having that, even if when we are creating, we may have, I think there is both a combination of this desire to, even if we're not making music for someone else, the desire to create, I think, is motivated by like expression, and whether that is someone else connecting with that, or it being a way for us to connect with ourselves, like journaling or free writing, something that no one sees. It is a practice. It is a way is a form of expression for us to connect with ourselves in a deeper or a different way.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, and there's so much being asked of us as people externally, right? To perform. I think you've been talking about the sort of societal pressures of everything, and so like I think that can be really numbing to the inner flame of who we are, and like that creativity. You're practicing that, honing that. It allows you to tap into that in a way that, you know, not a lot of things do. So I think that's well said. I love it. Awesome, man. Dude, this has been fantastic. I wanted to just really quickly talk about, you know, you've had an album last year. You did a full tour for that. Bridges Between is the album. You released that on Amphilia. Then you did your first headline tour, including China. Like, how was all that, man? I just want to give me a little taste. And everybody, if you're listening, go check out this album. It's phenomenal.
First of all, the album, yeah. So it was It's called Bridges Between, released on Ophelia, and the whole concept behind the album. First, disclaimer: the way that I've been writing albums and the way that I write music is really just I'm kind of just following the impulse, and in hindsight is when I piece everything together and I see the bigger story and the bigger picture that it paints. And for me, Bridges Between was a lot of like a lot of these different. It's a collection of songs of different emotional stages through this process of. It goes from like a process of the stages of loss and like denial and resentment and grief, and then acceptance, and then fulfillment again. And what Bridges Between really means is it's the bridge between a world without someone, or like a world, an external world where something is lost or someone is lost, and reconnecting, bridging within yourself. It's bridges between the world without and the world within was what the full title was going to be. But yeah, basically it's this cycle of, it is this path, this journey emotionally of reconnecting with oneself ultimately. I mean, I think it can be a pretty loose metaphor for different things. But for me, it was a way for me to process like all of these different stages through actually creating the songs and the things that I was experiencing during the creative process, and then ordering them together in a way that kind of tells this loose narrative, and emotionally it has this emotional arc. And the tour was started back in like late October 2023, and the first two shows were in Japan, Nagoya and Tokyo, and they were, wow, this is my first time ever in Asia, and luckily I got to bring my partner and my friend who speaks Japanese, and that helped substantially.
I imagine.
He was actually born in Japan, so it really helped a lot. And we stayed there for a week, which was cool. And then the last couple of days of the week, I played the shows, and oh my god, dude, the fandom there is just so different than it is here. The people are incredibly respectful, for one. The Tokyo show was like sold out, and it was a packed crowd, and like everyone, here's an example of like how it went down. There were like parts of my set where I look up and at least half the crowd, probably more, all had their phones up, like recording me, like I was like a zoo animal or some like intriguing specimen, but everyone is literally just focusing on me.
Wow.
And then when the song drops, everyone goes crazy and cheers and starts headbanging, and like the whole crowd is engaged, man. Like I've never seen anything like this before in the States, at least. And then like a few seconds later, like it's just silent. Like they're listening to the music, but just like jamming out. And then that process will happen again where everyone's focused, and then I drop the song, which is just a humbling experience to have that much. It almost felt like doing this for the first time, like playing a show for the first time, because I've played so many shows over the past 12 years here in the States, and you win some, lose some, but like you have some crowds that are really engaged, and then others that are not, and it all kind of just blurs together. Like it's fun, and it's obviously a huge blessing, but when you do something consistently for that long, your brain just gets. Your brain gets used to it. It doesn't, it's not focusing on all of these like more subtle things. But when the environment is completely different, and when everyone is giving you the attention and respect, it reevaluated why I'm doing all of this. So
awesome.
It was incredible. And afterwards, it was also an early show. I think it was like my set was like at 8 p.m. and I was the headliner, because there was like another show that was going to happen like a few hours afterwards. Anyway, It's still like the night is early. I go outside because everyone had to like leave the venue, and there is a line which is probably like at least half the crowd's worth of people to wanting to take pictures of with me and sign. And a lot of people brought my vinyls, Divinorum vinyls, to
Wow.
sign. Um, and that took like over an hour to get through everybody, but they're so nice there, man. And then a couple days later, I played a show. I played a festival called VAC in China, in Wuhan. It was like, I don't know, between 10 and 20,000 capacity. And man, it was the same deal. I remember I'm at this festival, and I'm walking through like the center crowd to the stage that I'm supposed to be, like where the rails are in the center, where people
Like
aren't.
the
So
safety center part. Yeah.
yeah, that connects the front of house to the stage. I'm walking, and as I approach the front of the stage, one person recognizes me and says, "Au5," and dude, a whole but like immediately everyone turns and is like screaming at me, like, "Oh my god!" Out of the blue, like, holy shit! I did not realize everyone literally in the front was there to see me, who was playing
Wow.
next.
Wow.
And it got me shook, man. Like, it's amazing, but it's also I've not been in that kind of situation before, and I did not know how my body was going to react to that. Afterwards, after my set was done, an hour later, I'm chilling like in the back tent, just talking to fans or talking to some other artists, friends and stuff, and someone comes up to me and they're like, "Hey, Austin, you have like, just let you know, no pressure, but you have like a huge group of fans that would love to say hi and take pictures with you on the side stage. They're just waiting for me for like an hour." So I go out there. And it's the same deal, man. I spent about an hour of just taking pictures and signing autographs, and people brought my vinyls to the festival.
Wow.
It's
Yeah.
just so much respect and overwhelming like love. That on the way back to the hotel from the festival, like I needed to emotionally decompress because I was like so charged up with. It was ungrounding. So I cried a bit because I just had to like release all of
Wow.
that I was charged with. So that was quite the kickoff to a tour. The rest of the shows were in the States, and I'd say they were all pretty damn good. Quite the turnout for each one, and yeah, it was just really fun to finally do like my first solo headlining tour. Just felt really purposeful, and by the end though, I was pretty drained. I was done, which is in
Yeah.
February. It wasn't like shows every single day. It was like about 20 or so shows over the course of like 4 months.
Okay.
Manageable, like weekend stuff.
Good.
But still, I was drained, and it took quite a bit of time to recover from all of that. Like the traveling alone, physically, I'm like
Yeah.
out of whack, but also just emotionally, I felt like I kind of just lost touch with myself. Having to uphold wear this energetic armor to protect me from these new environments. I mean, it's just a natural thing, I think, when we're unnaturally kind of being displaced and in front of and interacting with all of these different people and energy. We kind of build up this like energetic skin. And if we don't effectively like take off the armor when we're done and ground ourselves, things are different. Like I found myself not really being able to emotionally connect with my friends or even my partner very much because I'm still in this weird state of like, I guess, like defensiveness subconsciously.
Yeah.
That took a while to shake off, but once I did, that's when I really started feeling things intensely again and getting back in touch with myself. And yeah, that's when, I'm starting to feel these waves of inspiration, these highs and lows coming back again.
I think you have a pretty strong antenna, right? You're a sensitive person, and it seemed like from some of the things you said today is like overstimulation is a thing. Like, I don't know, I'm not sure, if we all can realize that, but when you get to that point where, like you said, you kind of felt numb, like that there's so much that comes at us where as a human being, like this world we're living in, it was not like this 500, 400, 300 years ago. You didn't get this much information in your brain this often. And now for you to be traveling in a plane or a car or a bus and then landing in a new place, meeting like, 100, 150 new people in one day. And then especially like this, the inner experiences with Japan and China, like to have that much positive or negative energy just directed at you at one time is like, especially as a sensitive artist whose your job is to feel deeply and express. What do I do with all this? Holy cow. So that's intense, man. Well, congratulations on that tour, brother. I am so proud of you. It has been absolutely phenomenal to catch up. I wanted to dig in more to your story, but I think we're going to save that for another day. You've just been awesome to chat with. So
thank you, Jesse. Yeah, I really appreciate doing this. And, just having this conversation with you, man. It's good to catch up, and I appreciate all of your perspective and your insights on all this stuff. I'm definitely going to be listening to this again.
Yeah, I'm excited for this one. Well, thank you, brother. Much love, and we'll have you again back sometime soon.
Sounds great, man. Jesse. Love you, bro.
Bye.
Be easy.